I've never liked camping. I'll admit that up front. But Nate, he loves this shit. Hiking into the middle of nowhere, pitching a tent, pretending we're Bear Grylls for the weekend. That's his thing. And I went because he asked. We've been planning the trip for weeks. Some backwoods trail, cutting through a chunk of Appalachian wilderness that barely anyone uses. He swore it was perfect, quiet, off the beaten path. No cutouts. In hindsight, maybe there's a reason nobody hikes that trail. We parked the car at this dusty lot, if you could even call it a lot. Just a patch of gravel at the edge of the tree line. A battered old sign marked the trailhead. Most of the letters were faded, chipped away by sun and rain. There were 2 other cars there, old, covered in dust. One of them looked like it hadn't moved in months. I tried to ignore that. Told myself hikers leave their cars for days sometimes. No big deal. But when that old guy came limping out of the woods, filthy, breathing hard, that's when the unease really kicked in. His clothes were torn, mud-caked, face scratched up like he'd fought through a briar patch. He didn't even look at us at first, just stumbled toward his truck like he was running on fumes. Nate called out, asking if he was all right. The guy froze, turned his head, slow, like it physically hurt to move. His eyes were wide, bloodshot, hollow. "Don't go in there," he rasped. "You hear me? Don't go in there." Nate laughed, tried to brush it off as some backwoods crazy trying to scare tourists. But I could see it. That man wasn't drunk. He wasn't high. He was terrified. Before I could argue, he climbed into his truck and peeled out of there, tires spinning in the gravel, vanishing down the dirt road. And just like that, it was quiet again, only the wind through the trees. I should have trusted my gut. I should have told Nate we were leaving. But instead, we grabbed our packs and we went in. The trail was rough, overgrown, barely marked. For hours, we hiked. No other people, no signs of life. The deeper we went, the heavier the air felt, like the woods were watching. By late afternoon, we found a clearing to set up camp. Small, surrounded by thick trees pressing in from every direction. As we unpacked, Nate wandered a little off, just poking around. Typical restless energy. Then I heard him call my name. His voice was tight. I followed, expecting maybe a cool overlook or some weird animal bones. But what he found, it was different. A pile of rocks, maybe 2 feet high, carefully stacked, not natural, deliberate, and sticking out of the middle was a deer skull. Bleached white, clean, perfectly balanced on top, like some sick little trophy. There were no other bones. No carcass, just the skull. Nate tried to joke, called it some Appalachian Blair Witch thing, but his eyes, his body language. He wasn't laughing inside. Neither was I. Where we come from, cults aren't just campfire stories. They happen, real ones, with real victims. A few years back, Nate's sister got mixed up in one. They nearly didn't get her out in time. So I knew. His smile? That was fear, disguised. The whole thing felt wrong. We moved camp farther down, but I couldn't shake the feeling. As the sun dipped lower, the woods seemed to lean in. Shadows stretching, swallowing the space around us. I suggested we walk a bit, stretch our legs, clear our heads. We didn't go far, just down the trail in the opposite direction of that skull. We hadn't been walking 5 minutes when we saw it. A dead opossum. At first, no big deal. Predators. Natural part of the forest. But then I got closer. The head, it wasn't torn off. It had been cut. Clean. Precise. No blood splatter. No totenfleisch. Just severed. A knife had done that. Nate saw it too. His whole posture changed. That sick, twisting dread filled my chest. I've never understood people who hurt animals for fun. That kind of cruelty, it's different. It sticks with you. It drains your faith in humanity. I swallowed it down, but my gut was screaming. We weren't supposed to be here. We weren't alone. I told Nate, we head back. We take turns sleeping. One always on watch. Then at first light, we're gone. Not because we thought a bear was nearby, but because something far worse was, and it was watching. We barely slept, took turns keeping watch, ears tuned to every crack of a twig, every gust of wind shifting the trees. The woods, normally full of life at night, were dead quiet. And that silence? It wasn't peaceful. It was suffocating, like the whole forest was holding its breath. I was on second watch. Midnight rolled past, nothing. 1 a.m., still nothing. But around 3 a.m., I heard it. A rustle, subtle, deliberate. Not the random shuffle of an animal foraging in the leaves. This was steady, measured. I froze, every muscle coiled tight, listening. My fingers tightened around the knife I'd kept at my side. Then another sound, closer this time. The unmistakable crunch of dead leaves underfoot. I thought deer, maybe, but no deer walks like that. No animal pauses, waits, then steps again. I slid out of the tent, slow, careful, scanning the dark tree line. The moon was barely a sliver overhead, shadows stretching like claws between the trunks. And that's when I saw it. A figure, human, standing perfectly still, maybe 20, 30 feet beyond our camp. Just watching. I couldn't make out a face, just a tall, broad shape half hidden behind a tree. But they knew I saw them, because the moment my eyes locked onto that shadow, they stepped back, not ran, not stumbled, just one smooth step, melting deeper into the darkness. Gone. I grabbed Nate's shoulder, shook him hard. He jolted awake, panic in his eyes before I even spoke. I told him, there's someone out there. He didn't ask questions, just reached for the gun. We sat there the rest of the night, backs to the tent, eyes wide, weapons ready. The forest stayed silent, but I could feel it. We weren't alone. And when dawn finally broke, that's when things got worse. We packed up fast, but when we passed the spot where the opossum had been, my stomach dropped. The head was back on the body, only it wasn't natural. It had been stitched, crudely, sickly, back onto the animal's neck with filthy, rotting fabric. The stitches were uneven, sloppy, but intentional. It wasn't a predator. It wasn't chance. It was a message. Someone had been inches from our camp, watching us, messing with us. And suddenly, every sound I'd heard last night wasn't just footsteps. It was them, right there, playing with us like we were already theirs. I don't know how long we ran. The forest blurred past in streaks of black and gray. Branches clawed at my arms, roots grabbed at my feet, but I didn't stop. I couldn't stop, because I could still hear them. Those things, whatever they were, crashing through the trees behind us. I don't think they ever spoke. Not like people do. But I heard them, snapping twigs, guttural breaths, that awful, unnatural shuffle in the dark. I thought we lost them. I pray we did. But when we finally stumbled into that clearing, the low ground of the ridge, that's when I saw them again, standing above us, silhouetted against the moonlight. There were more of them now, for maybe 5. It was hard to tell with the way they moved, like their bones didn't fit right under their skin. Their arms hung wrong, their legs bent at impossible angles. It was like they weren't made to walk upright, but they were trying anyway. And their eyes, God, their eyes caught the moonlight. Reflective, animal-like, but there was something else there too, hunger. Nate froze beside me. I could see the same realization crashing over him as it did me. These weren't just deranged people. They weren't entirely human, and we were trapped. The ridge boxed us in on both sides, and behind us, nothing but thick, tangled brush. "We keep moving," Nate whispered. His voice was hoarse, trembling, but steady enough to convince me. And we did. Quiet at first, careful, but it didn't matter. The moment we moved, they did too. Their heads twitched like animals sniffing prey. Their limbs jerked unnaturally as they climbed down the ridge toward us, every step wrong, every motion jarring. That's when Nate pulled out the satellite phone. He fumbled with it, trying to get a signal, his hands shaking so hard I could hear the plastic casing rattle. I kept my eyes on them, every one of those things, watching them creep closer. They didn't rush. They didn't have to. They knew. Out here, we were already dead. But then a crackle of static. Nate's voice, ragged, desperate, poured into the receiver. "Mayday, this is Nate Hollis. We need assistance. Northeast ridge, off main trail there." He didn't finish the sentence. I don't think he knew how to explain it, but they heard him. The moment the words left his mouth, the things, those people, whatever they were, lurched forward. Fast. We bolted. No more caution. No more quiet steps. Just pure survival. The forest closed in around us again. But I didn't care. All I could think was, just keep running. The forest swallowed us. Branches whipped at my face. Roots snagged my boots. Every breath burned my lungs. But I didn't care. Behind us, those things crashed through the undergrowth. Their limbs smacked against trees. Their guttural breaths echoed through the hollow dark. And somehow, they were faster now. I could hear them closing the distance. That wrong, jerking sprint. Their knees bending the wrong way, like their bones were stitched together by someone who didn't know how humans were supposed to move. Nate was ahead of me, his silhouette weaving through the trees. His voice, ragged and desperate. Keep going. Don't stop. But my legs were failing. My thighs screamed with every stride. My chest heaved so hard I thought my ribs might snap. Then, snap. A branch broke behind me. Close. Too close. I risked a glance back, and my blood turned to ice. One of them was right there. Its face half hidden by matted hair, streaked with dirt, with what looked like stitches. Dark, rotting thread crisscrossed its skin like someone had pulled it apart and put it back together wrong. Its eyes, glassy, pale, locked onto mine. And it smiled. God help me, it smiled. Not a normal smile. Its lips split at the corners, skin cracking like old leather, teeth jagged and wrong. I stumbled. Almost fell. But Nate grabbed my arm, yanked me upright. We're close, he panted. His eyes were wide. The junction. Just keep moving. We burst through the trees, and there it was. The trail. The real trail. A thin dirt path, cutting through the forest like salvation. But we weren't alone. At the far end of the path, they stood there. 3 more of them. Twisted, stitched together silhouettes, blocking the way. Their heads twitching, their movements jagged, bones bending like marionettes with broken strings. My heart sank. We cut across, Nate hissed. Off trail. Side route. We don't stop. The side route was barely visible. Overgrown. A gamble. But better than walking into their waiting arms. We veered off, crashing through ferns and thorn bushes, branches scraping our faces. The forest grew thicker, darker. Behind us, more of them. Dozens now. I could hear their ragged breaths, their snapping joints, their low, throaty growls. And that's when I realized they weren't chasing us like hunters. They were hurting us, pushing us somewhere, forcing us off the known trails, deeper into their territory. And the worst part? I didn't think this was the first time they'd done it. We crashed through the undergrowth like wild animals. The woods blurred past, nothing but shadows and thorns tearing at our clothes. My lungs burned. My legs barely listened to me anymore. But stopping wasn't an option. Behind us, the sound of snapping branches, unnatural footfalls, and those awful, wet breaths never faded. They were still coming. And worse, they were guiding us now. Hurting us, forcing us deeper off the marked trails and into the unknown. I don't know how long we ran. Minutes? Hours? Time didn't mean anything out there. But eventually, the ground changed. The trees thinned, the soil turned to hard-packed dirt, and suddenly, we burst into an open clearing. I wish we hadn't. It wasn't a natural clearing, not one made by weather or animals. It was a camp, or a graveyard. The space was ringed by wooden stakes, tall and crooked, driven into the ground at odd angles. Strung between them were bones. Hundreds of them. Animal bones, human bones, strung together with rotting twine like grotesque wind chimes. In the center, the altar, just like the one we'd seen before. Only this one was bigger, piled higher with rocks and bones, with an animal skull perched on top. But this skull wasn't bleached white like the deer's skull. It was fresh. Flesh still clung to it, blood staining the rocks beneath. Nate froze beside me, his chest heaving. "Oh my God," he whispered. I want to turn to run back into the woods, but it was too late. From a tree line, they stepped out. Not just the 3 from before. Not just 5. A dozen. Maybe more. All of them stitched together. All of them wrong. Skin patchworked. Joints bending in ways they shouldn't. Faces that were human, but barely. And at the center of them, the tallest one, a man, or at least it used to be a man. But now his face was masked by strips of leather and animal hide, stitched crudely to his skin. His arms were long, his fingers tipped with something sharp, bone knives or claws. And when he spoke, his voice wasn't natural. It was layered, like more than one person speaking through him. You weren't supposed to see this. My heart slammed against my ribs. Nate's hand tightened around the gun, but I could feel it, the hopelessness radiating off him. We couldn't fight this. Not all of them. The leader tilted his head, bones creaking. But you saw, so now you stay. Behind them, I noticed something else, tense, old, tattered, and inside, backpacks, hiking boots, personal belongings. People had been here before, just like us, and they never made it out. I met Nate's eyes. He didn't have to say it. I knew we were either going to run or we were going to die here. But we weren't going to let them stitch us back together. Nate raised the gun. The clearing erupted. The gunshot cracked through the clearing like a lightning strike. One of them, one of those stitched together things, jerked backward, collapsing in a heap of bone and flesh. But the others didn't flinch. They didn't scream. They didn't panic. They just smiled. A dozen crooked, broken faces twisting into something far worse than anger. Nate fired again, but I grabbed his arm. "Run," I hissed. There wasn't a plan. There wasn't time for one. We just bolted. We crashed through the bones hanging from the stakes, ignoring the sharp edges cutting at our skin. The stitched people lunged after us, their movements jerky and unnatural, like puppets with tangled strings. But they were fast, faster than they had any right to be. Behind me, I could hear them, those guttural, layered voices chanting in some language I didn't understand. The sound made my skin crawl, but we kept running. The woods were a labyrinth of shadows, but somehow, we stumbled onto a path. Faint, overgrown, but it was a trail. Nate was ahead of me, still clutching the gun, his flashlight bouncing wildly in his other hand. I didn't look back. I didn't want to see how close they were, but I could hear them. Their footsteps, their breathing, the wet, horrible sound of them crashing through the trees. We pushed forward, lungs burning, legs screaming. I tripped once, nearly face-planting into the dirt, but Nate yanked me back to my feet. And then, I saw it. A signpost. Weathered. Rusted. But it was there. The main trail. Civilization. Hope. We tore down that path, following the faint markings, praying it was the right way. Behind us, their voices grew fainter. The footsteps slowed. We didn't stop. Not for a second. The sun was rising when we finally burst out of the woods onto a gravel road. And parked there, a ranger's truck, a real one. The officer barely had time to open the door before we collapsed onto the ground, gasping, trembling, broken. We tried to explain about the altar, the stitched men, the campsite, but I could see it in his face. He didn't believe us. Not entirely. But then Nate showed him the stitched animal corpse we'd filmed earlier. The mutilated opossum, the pile of rocks and skull. His expression changed. Backup arrived within the hour. A search team. Dogs. Drones. They went into those woods, but they didn't find anyone. Just remnants. Ropes. Bones. Blood. And that altar, miles from where we first saw it. They never caught them. The stitched men. The broken bone people. Whatever they were. But hikers still go missing out there. And every so often, a hunter, a camper, they'll report seeing figures in the trees. Watching. Moving wrong. And if you're unlucky, you'll hear them speak. Not one voice, but many. We got out. We were the lucky ones. But we didn't escape them. Not really. Because every time I close my eyes, I still see them. It's funny how your brain convinces you you're invincible after surviving something terrifying. You walk away, think it's over. You tell yourself the odds of it happening twice, slim to none. I thought that too until last fall. See, I'd already been through hell once. Something I never talk about. Not to friends, not to family. The kind of thing that leaves you jumping at shadows for months, scanning dark corners like some paranoid maniac. But last fall, I let my guard down. Josh, this guy from work, talked me into a hiking trip. Said it'd be good for me. Fresh air, no crowds, no cell reception. He sold it like therapy. Said Ridge Hollow was practically untouched wilderness. Perfect for clearing your head. What he didn't know, what I didn't tell him, was that untouched places, they stay that way for a reason. We set off on a crisp October morning. 2-day hike, nothing crazy. The forest was quiet, too quiet looking back now. No bird song, no rustle of squirrels, just leaves crunching underfoot and the occasional gust of wind. By noon, we spotted it. An old cabin tucked off the trail. Real old. Sagging roof, boarded windows, chimney cracked with moss growing from the stones. Josh thought it was cool. Wanted to check it out. Everything in me screamed no, but I didn't say anything. Couldn't bring myself to sound paranoid again, so I followed him. The cabin door was ajar. Deep gashes scored the frame, like claws or maybe a knife. The wood was old, but the markings looked fresh. Inside, empty, almost. The fireplace was cold, long dead. But in the center of the floor, a circle. Stones arranged in some crude pattern. Burnt bones, small ones. Birds maybe, or something else. Josh was fascinated. I was frozen. The walls were covered with symbols, scratched deep into the wood, spiraling, jagged patterns that made my skin crawl. None of it looked random. And one, right by the door frame, fresh. The wood was splintered raw. Dark smudges of dried blood crusted around it. That's when I told Josh we were leaving. He laughed at first, thought I was messing with him, but the look on my face must have registered. We left, but we didn't leave the woods. And whatever found that cabin, it found us next. The forest got darker fast, way faster than it should have. The sun was still up, but the trees, it was like they closed in. Shadows stretched, long and sharp. The wind died completely. Then came the whispers, soft, broken words in a language I couldn't place. They circled us, rising and falling, like they were drifting on the air. We couldn't see anyone, but we weren't alone. We set up camp at the first clearing we found. We didn't speak, barely ate, just waited listening. The whispers never stopped. Around midnight, they appeared. Figures, tall and unnaturally thin. Their eyes reflected light like animal eyes. But they weren't animals. Their arms were too long, joints bending wrong. Limbs moving like marionettes pulled by invisible strings. And they didn't walk. They glided, silent, effortless. Their faces wrong. No mouse. Just stretched, skin-tight features, like something wearing human mask that didn't quite fit. Josh was frozen. I couldn't breathe. The figures circled, closer, watching, studying. Then they stopped, all at once, dead still. One raised its head and pointed at me. The whispers cut off. The next thing I remember, running. No plan, no guide, just pure survival panic tearing through my body. We ran for hours, through the brush, across streams, downhill until the forest thinned. We didn't stop, not until we hit an old dirt road and flagged down a truck driver at dawn. We never spoke about it after. The police? They found our campsite, our gear, but no footprints, no cabin, nothing. They said Ridge Hollow's been abandoned for decades. No structures, no trails, nothing but empty forest. But I know what I saw. And if you ever hike near the Appalachian backcountry, if you see a cabin where there shouldn't be one, don't go inside. Don't look at the symbols. And if you hear whispers in the trees, run. Because there are places out there forgotten by maps, ignored by logic, where they still wait. And they never forget your face. So yeah, that's my story. Believe it. Don't believe it. That's up to you. But I've lived it. I've survived it. And if there's one thing I can tell you with absolute certainty, it's that the world isn't as clean, as sane, as safe as we like to pretend. There are things out there, things wearing human skin like a costume, things that know how to move in the shadows, things that don't belong. And sometimes you don't stumble onto them by accident. Sometimes they're waiting for you to step off the trail, waiting for you to camp in the wrong patch of woods, waiting and watching. We got lucky. Most people, they end up as part of the altar. If you're smart, you'll stay the hell out of those forests. But if you're stubborn, if you think it's all just stories, remember one thing. The last sound they'll hear isn't your screaming. It's them laughing. Sleep tight.